Hey, Careblazers. Can you hear me? Welcome to another live Q&A. I'm so excited. I've missed you all. We've got some amazing questions and comments that have come in. All right. We're just going to start at the top of the hour. I'm going to pull up all the questions on my screen. Hmm. All right. Hey, Donna. Welcome. Hi, Sonia. Nice to see you both. See your names anyway. Donna, I don't know if you watch football at all, but I'm guessing Pittsburgh was down and up and down again after that Steelers game on Thursday. Whew. I don't follow as closely as I did when I lived there, but I watched the second half of that game. I can't believe it's the middle of December already. It's like, oh, well, I guess maybe it's not totally the middle. It's the 11th. Yeah, that's kind of the middle. We're getting there. So, yeah, they were for the first 3 quarters, it was like 0 to 29, and the Vikings were winning, or 0 to 28. The 4th quarter, they, came back within 1 score, and then they lost it. So, I don't know why they waited till the 4th quarter to play, but what do you know? Yeah, it's not like the good old days. I miss Palomalu. Hi, Meredith. Your loved one's in Arizona. Awesome. Arizona, beautiful weather right now. Oh my gosh, the sun is shining. Our sunset yesterday was just the most amazing sunset ever. Sky was like pink and orange, and oh, I just love it here. Love, love, love it here. But it is cold for us, I guess. What is it? What is the temperature? Although I'm getting hot, I poured tea and I'm wearing a sweater and I'm going live, and going live always makes me warm. It says it's 62 degrees and sunny. We're gonna take Nico for a hike later after I have another live today for my challenge members. Um, oh my gosh, Sonia, you and your mom are going out for a fancy dinner next week to celebrate life. I love it. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. That's so exciting. Take a picture, Sonia, of you and your mom as you get ready to go out. Another person from Pennsylvania. Hello, Lynn. Sunsets are the best there. I love when my friend is cold at 16. Exactly, yeah, it's like, you turn into a pretty I remember I was big into running in Pittsburgh. I would run as long as there wasn't ice on the ground, I would run, down to 20 degrees. I just bundle up, get off there, go running, nothing ever stopped me. And, now it's, 50 degrees. I'm like, "No, thank you." I turned into a wuss really, really quickly. Oh, okay, we're at the top of the hour, Careblazers. Let's get started. So, thank you all for being here. So there was questions submitted. I'm going to answer those questions first. As always, I'll probably have time at the end to answer any questions. If some of you are watching and you didn't submit a question, that's okay. You can leave it in the comments. I'll do my best to get to them towards the end. And then also, for those of you who maybe submitted and you have a follow-up question to my answer, feel free to also leave that in a comment, or you can just email me the next time we do a live Q&A and I will respond there. But I want to make sure my responses to you are actually helping you. So if you're running into a roadblock or you're trying something and it didn't work, come back. That's what these are for. A lot of times with trying to figure out the best approach, it is a little bit of trial and error, and we sometimes don't get it immediately on the first try. That's okay. That's why we keep doing these things weekly, right? So, um, just a little bit there. Let's start here. This is from Medina. Dina says, I am still searching for the right placement for my father. What is your opinion of a Jerry psych evaluation for a person with late stage dementia on hospice but still presents behaviors? My father's hospice social worker says no, but several of the facilities that we have toured may require it. Yeah, so this is a great question, Dina, and it's good information for everybody to have. If you are wanting to place your loved one in a facility, or you're thinking about it in the future, that facility is going to have requirements. That facility it has their own rules for getting in, right? And sometimes those rules are really simple, like you might need um, certain health checks. You might need a formal diagnosis of dementia, so you might need to like actually submit some sort of healthcare document that shows your loved one has dementia. It's different for every facility. So my recommendation here, Dina, for you is if you're thinking about putting your loved one in one of these facilities, check with that facility and say, what do you need to know? Let them know about your situation. It might be sufficient if your loved one has late stage dementia and is on hospice, it might be sufficient that they might not need a full Jerry psych evaluation, right? So it's not an answer that I can say yes or no. It depends on what the rules are of that facility. Now, if we are talking like no facility um, is in question, you're not really thinking about placing your loved one and you're just curious or like somebody recommended it. Personally, my recommendation is no. Why would you put somebody in late stage dementia who's on hospice care? Why would you put them through that evaluation? Right? Like, what are you going to get out of it? That's a question, a guiding question I like to ask whenever somebody is thinking about putting their loved one with dementia through a procedure or through a test. It's like, what is the benefit that's going to come from it? What is going to come out of it? Now, like my husband, he works for a neurology practice and he does neuropsych evaluations. And sometimes he gets people with late stage dementia. And, like he doesn't tell me specifics or anything, but I'm like, why? Like, but he will often say, well, they need it. They need this evaluation to get placed, or they need this evaluation to qualify for long-term um, long-term care planning or some sort of long-term care insurance or something like that. Like there's sometimes reasons beyond medical or healthcare reasons like that are going to benefit your loved one individually. Sometimes there's like bigger requirements that your loved one will have to jump through that hoop. So to summarize, if you're looking into places for your loved one to stay, call those places, check with those places, and ask them specifically, what do you need? It might be sufficient that a documentation of hospice and term end stage dementia might be enough, right? But if it's not, you're going to want to go forward with the evaluation if you're thinking your loved one needs to go to one of those places, right? So, like, we don't want to put our loved ones through things that aren't really going to help them. But if it's going to help them and you by getting them into a facility, sometimes we have to kind of check the box. Sometimes we have to go through it. And a lot of times, those facilities, especially if your loved one has had behaviors and that's like documented in the chart, they might need a psychiatrist or a psychologist to document that they're under well control or that they respond easily to redirection or something like that, because I know a lot of facilities are also a little bit iffy about taking people with difficult behaviors. So I hope that helps you, Dina, but just for everybody, like, check on the requirements of all the places you're looking in and then decide which ones you're really kind of narrowing down and make sure you get all those in place, right? um, let's see. Hi, Mark. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Don. Hi, Liz. Welcome, everybody. Okay, so Dina, I hope that helps you. Best of luck to you as you look for a place for your loved one. I'm guessing your father's hospice social worker says no. Like that social worker might know, well, obviously knows way more about your situation than I do, right? But I think you have to look at what they're looking at. It's probably not going to be very beneficial to your loved one. It's probably going to be uncomfortable for your loved one. But at the same time, they have to get it to be placed, you got to go for it, right? All right. This is from Barbara. My feelings of resentment towards my husband seem to have escalated lately. I lost my mother in November, and I did not visit her the weekend before she passed, as all my other siblings did, because I thought it would be too stimulating for my husband. We had no idea that would be the last weekend of her life. I regret not being there with my siblings. I find myself resenting always putting his needs before mine. I want to take care of him, but I need some care as well. He has stopped going to his twice weekly adult daycare. He always makes an excuse not to attend. I think he has figured out that he is not a volunteer. I don't want to complain. I just want some time to myself. I can't even grieve my mother's death. I know the situation is not hopeless, but I'm feeling pretty lost these days. What can I do to help myself? Oh, Barbara, so much love going out to you. I have a couple of things I want to say. First of all, to go to go back in time, right? Like in your mind, you are reviewing that you made a decision not to visit your mom, and then that was the last weekend she lived. It does you zero good. It does not help you at all to think to yourself that you should have done something differently because you didn't. As much as we wish we could have done something differently, or as much as you replay the situation in your mind, you are never going to be able to go back in time. You are never going to be able to change that decision, right? You made the best decision you know how in that time point, right? None of us know how the future is going to unfold. None of us know what's coming, right? So you have like your brain is going to do this thing where it's like, I should have done this, right? Or I wish I would have done this differently. And even worse than that, your brain is going to start looking for like where to place the blame, right? So you're putting part of it on you, but you're also putting part of it on your husband, right? My husband gets, it was going to be too stimulating for him. I have to make all these changes to make sure that he is going to be okay. Like, that is going to breed resentment and frustration. So, number one, Barbara, no more like regret. Regret doesn't do anything. You can't, we don't have all the information, right, of the future. We can't predict the future. In that time, in the moment you decided not to visit your mom, you decided not to because you thought it was going to be too stimulating for your husband, right? That's a really great reason. That is a really great reason to make a decision not to go somewhere, right? The only and if your mom had your mom had lived and did not pass away that weekend, you would have been very fine and happy with your decision. It would not have been a big issue like it is now. The only thing is you didn't know that was going to happen, so now you're questioning it. But Careblazers, for all of you, going back in time and regretting a decision that you made that you thought was the best decision in that time is never going to benefit you. It's only going to hurt you. And it's not hurting your husband, it's not hurting your siblings, it's not hurting your mom who's passed. It's just hurting you right now, Barbara. So no more like notice your brain is going to go there because it will. And then you remind yourself, I made the best decision I knew how in that moment. And the best decision I thought in that moment was to not expose my husband to this. Okay. Like that's it, period. No more, like we can't change that. That's what happened. So, have your own back, support yourself through that decision. This is a trap I see so many people do is they make a decision and then life happens and we get to see the outcome of the decision, right? We get to see like how it was all going to turn out. And then based on that, we start to beat ourselves up or we start to regret our decision or we start to think we should have done something differently. Don't do that. You can't do that. That's impossible, right? We don't know how things are going to work out. So number one, Careblazer, always have your back. You did what you thought was best in that decision, have your back. Now that being said, life has played out. Your mom passed away. That's so like it's heartbreaking. It's sad. You wish you would have been there, right? Like that is okay. It is okay to grieve. It is okay to wish you were there. It's okay. There's a difference between wishing you were there and regretting making the decision you made at the time. Um, um, Breeding and resent and thinking like notice the slippery slope that happens like you start to get frustrated you weren't there, you start to think about your reason for not going, which is your husband, you start to think of all the times that you made all these decisions with your husband's interest first, it breeds more resentment and it like it builds and builds and builds. So what I want you to do, Barbara, is I want you to focus like right here and now. What can you do? What do you have control over? Right. And so right here and now we can decide like what the bigger picture hit is, and the bigger message from your email is like making sure you're prioritizing your own self-care, making sure you're making decisions with you in mind. None of us can go back and change any decision that we've made, but we can start to make new decisions right now. So right now, I'm getting the sense that you want to start putting yourself on the to-do list. You want to start putting yourself on the priority list. You want to make sure you have some time for yourself, right? So that's now we have to decide where do I want to go from here? How can I do that? What is the best way for me to do that? Your husband used to go to adult day healthcare, isn't going anymore. Is it possible that you bring this back up and it's okay if he doesn't like to go? Like, is it possible that you say, we have to go here today? There's no option, you have to go, right? We're getting in the car and we're going. Or is it possible that they really miss you? They want to see you today. We're going to get in the car and you're going to go say hi, right? And it's okay. Like, Careblazers, I want to give all of you permission. Sometimes doing what you want to do for yourself, sometimes your loved one is totally fine with it. That's ideal. A lot of the times, your loved one is not okay with it, and it is still okay to do the thing that you need to do, right? Your loved one might say he doesn't want to go to adult day healthcare. So, my challenge to you is to get really creative in thinking, what can I do? What can I do to get him in the car and go? It can literally be like, we have no choice. You have an appointment. We have to go. It could be they want to see you. It could be there's a special celebration happening. I want you to go. It could be I need you to go. There is no choice. Like, you know your husband's personality best and what he is going to respond to best. I want you to play around with that. Now, let's say he is like just refusing no matter what. You've given it, like, you've tried a different approach for several weeks and you're like, it's not working. Then the question is, what can I do to prioritize myself? What can I do to for me? It might be staying in your bedroom for 15 extra minutes a day without going out there and seeing him. It might be like, Careblazer, I want to give you guys all permission too. Like, you guys are Careblazers because you have big hearts and you're trying to do the best for your loved one with dementia. But doing the best for your loved one with dementia doesn't mean totally neglecting yourself. So, some nights you might not feel like making dinner, and that's okay. Maybe you give your loved one a bowl of cereal or a bowl of soup or something really easy. Like, think about what would it look like if you started caring for yourself? That's a question I want you to start asking, Barbara. What would it look like whenever you're making a decision, whenever you're deciding to move forward with your day, Barbara, and for all the rest of you? Ask yourself, like, what would today look like if I was considering both of us? What would today look like if I was considering my what I want? What would the next hour look like if I did something with myself in mind? Start asking yourself those questions. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to be able to, like, get up and go take a vacation and just leave your loved one, right? We are working in the reality that we have, but it does mean you might start making some different decisions. Like, you might be okay with your loved one being upset with you from time to time. You might be okay with not living up to the standards you think are the standards of a really great care blazer. That is okay. Like, you cannot go through this caregiving journey totally neglecting yourself whatsoever. And so, what I also want to say here for Barbara and for everybody is that a lot of this is on you. Like, you have the power to decide how you're going to respond. So many of us, especially in the beginning, we're doing everything we can for a loved one with dementia. We're not really considering ourselves. That has got to change. It's got to change right now for everybody. Even if you still make a decision that is 100% in the best interest of your loved one with dementia, you have to start asking yourself the question, what is in the best interest of me right now? It's okay. What would that even look like? Start entertaining the question. Even if you don't take action from it, start asking yourself that. Because the thing that breeds resentment is starting to look in the past, which we can't change, and thinking about how you did this and how you did that and how you didn't do this and how you didn't do that, all for your loved one with dementia, when all along, Careblazer, you get to decide what you're going to do to respond, right? Nobody wishes the situation on anybody. We can't change the fact that your loved one has dementia, but we can change the fact about how you're going to go through it, right? Does that make sense? So, I don't want you to give up on taking him back to adult daycare. I want you to be open and experiment and creative in how you're going to get him back to daycare. Um, I want you to start asking yourself, what would it look like for me right now? Um, what would the next hour look like if I did something for myself? What would caring for me look like right now? If I was to make this decision and consider both of us, what would that look like? I want you to start asking yourself that. Every single care blazer, I want you to start asking yourself that. Oh, you're here, Barbara. Let's see. Um, yeah, Sonia says we have to remember all the good things we have done and stop kicking ourselves when things don't work out like planned. Um, I had the ADC call and say they needed him. He would still not go. He is still with it enough to make those kinds of choices for himself. Okay. I just ordered Christmas dinner for the first time in 47 years because I don't feel like cooking. awesome, right? I was talking to a Careblazer recently. I don't she actually, was feeling sick the last time I talked to her, so I don't know if she's here or not, but her Thanksgiving dinner was nachos. I think I shared that with you the last time. Like, give yourself permission to do what's right for you. Thanksgiving dinner this year might literally be ordering out takeout. Like whatever. It could be warming up a frozen meal, right? Just make like do what's easier for you. So the other thing, Barbara, is like I'd really start to ask yourself, like, what other things can you do? So first of all, play around. Like I love that your adult day center called and said they needed him. Right. I love that they did that. That's a sign of a really great center. That didn't work. Give it a week, maybe try something different. Like, we have to go today, or I have to go do something for myself. I'm going to drop you off here in the meantime. Like, see how that works. Again, he might still say no. That's okay, Barbara. That's where you start asking other things like, I'm going to order Christmas dinner for myself. That's okay. I am not going to, like, right now, if you saw my couch in my living room, it's filled with clothes. I'm not going to fold the laundry today, right? Like, start giving yourself permission to take things easier on yourself and, not beat yourself up over it, right? Like, I had to then learn not to look at my couch and then be frustrated with myself, right? So there's like layers along the way. But Barbara, the resentment is coming from you not prioritizing yourself, you not like taking control over what you can take control of, and starting to play the tape recorder in your mind of the past of all of the sacrifices you've made up to this point. What I would encourage all of you to do is to try to stay in the present moment as it is right now and decide from this moment forward. Can't change anything about the past. We don't even know what the future is going to hold. What do we want to do right now? What do we want to do in this moment and start considering yourself in the process? Slowly but surely, you'll start to feel better. Um, okay. So, Barbara, feel free to keep commenting if you have any follow up or questions. And I just want to say, like, it's a process, right? And you also, Careblazer, I'll just say this because I just did the first day of my, again, I did the Make Caregiving Easier challenge again. So, I did day one yesterday. And I just want to say that day one was the 50-50, and you guys all have access to the recordings in the care course. Like if you go down, you'll see lessons that say how to make caregiving easier. So you can watch all this and benefit from it. But for you, Barbara, and for everybody, like life is going to come with some really uncomfortable emotions. Life is going to come with emotions we'd rather not have. Life is going to come with frustration and guilt and resentment and sadness and heartbreak, right? Life is going to come with that no matter what. There's no way to get rid of it. You can practice all the self care in the world. That's still going to happen from time to time. It's kind of the 50-50 of life, right? About 50% of the time, some really great things happen. About 50% of the time, some really awful things happen. It doesn't mean anything has gone wrong, but how you choose to respond to that negative 50, how you choose to respond to that uncomfortable 50 is really, really important. And that's where your power comes in. Careblazer, you have permission to be sad. Barbara, you have permission to be heartbroken, right? Absolutely. I don't want anybody to get the message that you have to change that right away. But I do want you to get the message that whenever you're ready and whenever you want, you get to decide how you want to move forward, right? And you might choose to move forward with still feeling heartbreak for losing your mom, with still feeling sad that you weren't with your family on that last weekend of her life. But you might choose that you don't really want to feel resentment anymore because the only thing resentment really does is just hurt you. So like you get to think about like, is this really serving me? Is this really what I want to feel? Like most people probably want to feel heartbroken when somebody they love passes away, right? Like that's you probably do. Most people probably don't want to feel resentful. Like that's like when we think about like the all the possibilities of emotions, like resentment is probably one of the ones that I can't really see ever wanting to feel that way, you know? Because like resentment is like you're resenting something you can't change at all. Like, so like sadness, heartbreak, that makes sense to me. Resentment, you might want to rethink about that one, right? So I hope that helps you, Barbara. Um, yes, great. Somebody says, Marie, that sounds fun, but I don't see what Marie wrote. Okay, we'll come back to that later. Let's get back to the questions. Mm, oh my gosh, is Lori here? Is Lori here? Everybody, can we just give a shout? First of all, I want to thank each and every one of you who are here on this live Q&A, and each and every one of you. Last week when we did a live Q&A, so many of you spoke up and shared stories to Lori. Lori was the person, I don't know if you remembered, Lori was the person that was struggling with starting to step in and manage her husband's finances, and she started to notice her husband was making some like poor financial decisions. And so many of you stepped up and shared your horror stories, shared how you learned the hard way that you have to get involved in the finances. Listen to what Lori wrote. I wanted to update you on my progress with the financial prep question I had last time. My husband was diagnosed with Alzheimer's a year ago, and I was asking about suggestions about power of attorneys, monitoring finances, etc., at these earlier stages. After all of the encouragement from Dr. Natalie and others making comments, I am happy to report that I convinced him to add my name to all of his personal bank accounts, and we will be signing our power of attorneys on Monday to become effective immediately. It took a bit of talking and convincing, but I stuck with it, feeling really proud of myself and better prepared for the future. Thanks to everyone who commented and encouraged. Careblazers, that's amazing. Thank you all so much for sharing your feedback with Lori and for participating and helping, giving her the push she needed to have that really uncomfortable conversation. Um, all right, so that's great. This one is from Sue. My husband with dementia is starting to search for the right words in conversation and often picks the wrong one. I then have trouble understanding him and responding appropriately. Sometimes I take him literally, but soon realize he can't even remember what words he just used. It's very frustrating to both of us. I want our conversations to be pleasant and sweet. I suspect I should respond to almost anything he says by repeating it or asking if what I thought he said is what he meant, or is there a better way? I really miss how we used to be able to finish each other's statements like other long wedded partners. Thanks for the wonderful guidance I received from your care course and your videos. Okay, Sue, several things. Number one, I want to point out it's going to be very easy to start thinking all long wedded partners. Most of them are still finishing each other's sentences. They're able to have pleasant conversations. They're able to like enjoy one another. Like, be careful that you're not comparing your situation to this idea you have about how everybody else, all other long wedded, happily married couples are having conversations, right? Because that doesn't do anything to help you. There's plenty of people out there who are also on the opposite spectrum. So I just want to make sure you're not using that to make yourself feel worse. The other thing I want to say is I want our conversations to be pleasant and sweet. That's great. If you want your conversations to be pleasant and sweet, you have to like think thoughts that make you feel like they're pleasant and sweet. I'm afraid that you're thinking you're going to have to be able to know everything your husband says all the time and find the perfect way to communicate to have a pleasant and sweet conversation. And you're going to be basing that off of conversations in the past. Things are changing. The brain is changing. His language abilities are changing. So we have to be very careful. We're not comparing current conversations to conversations of the past. Conversations now can still be very pleasant and sweet, but they might look totally different than they did in the past. I don't want you to use that against yourself. I don't want you to be using this comparison to make yourself feel awful and then to feel like it's not the work and effort that you might have to put forward to have some pleasant conversations are not worth it, right? So pleasant and sweet in the past might look and actually very likely will look different than pleasant and sweet now. Pleasant and sweet now might be getting through a conversation with you and your husband not getting frustrated, right? But you're going to be much more likely to get frustrated if you're thinking you have to know exactly what he says all the time, or you're thinking that the conversation should be much easier. You think that the conversation should be like they were in the past. You're thinking that you're never going to have a good conversation again. Like, catch yourself in your mind starting to go down that track. That's not going to help you, right? Um, so, okay, in terms of best communication strategies, there's so much that goes on in understanding dementia care. There's so much that goes on in understanding speech and language. Like, I don't know, you say sometimes you say take him literally, but realize he can't even remember what words he just used, right? So you are going to have to, like, again, take this with a very open, creative, experimentation mind. If you have the possibility to get an evaluation by a speech pathologist or a speech therapist, I would really recommend it because they will be able to help you with the best communication strategies possible. Like your husband, there's so many, let's just break it down to like some of the parts about language. There's so many different parts about language. There's the part of, does he understand what you are saying? Right? So some simple ways to test this. Like I usually reserve this for like the professionals testing. They have their own professional ways of doing it. I don't want to set you up in a situation where your husband gets frustrated with you, but just for purposes of education here, does your husband understand what you're saying? Right? So you can say to your husband, is your name Joe? If his name is Joe, he'll say yes. If it's not, he'll say no. Right? And ask several questions to see if it's even right. Like, is this a coffee cup? What color is this sweater? Like, this is just testing. Does he even understand the words out of your mouth? This is comprehension, right? People with dementia sometimes have a problem with comprehension. So you might be saying stuff and he might be saying yes or no, but he actually might not be understanding what you're saying. We can't sometimes take things at face value, right? He might be noticing you're saying something. So he's saying yes or no because he's programmed to like make a response when somebody talks to him, but his brain may not be computing. So I want you to put on the detective hat. Like, does he seem to understand what I'm saying? Right. So you can do some of those simple questions to see. Now, the other part is, can he express what he's trying to express? Right. So he might say something and then like, he might say, I'm thirsty. And then you give him something to drink, and then he might be frustrated and upset. So maybe he's saying, I'm thirsty, but maybe that's not the word he was wanting to use. Maybe he's actually hungry, right? So this is where you start to clue in, okay, he's having problems with expressing himself, right? So if somebody's having problems with expressing themselves, what can you do to help them express themselves? Again, a speech pathologist evaluation is really great here, but this is where you can literally have, for some people, a picture book of like a drink, food, hot, a bed, what like you can learn different ways to communicate with them. You can see if he can still write. Can he still write? You can take the creative approach of doing a guessing game. Like if you give him the water and he's like upset, you don't want it, like, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you wanted water. Like, would you like some food? Right? Again, if his comprehension is okay, he might be able to say yes or no. But when it comes to him expressing himself, he might say the wrong thing. So if he's expressing himself and you're not sure he's fully doing it the right way, then you can start asking the question, you would like some water? Okay, I'll get you some water. Or if you say you would like, he says, I'm thirsty, and you say you'd like some water, and he says no, you're like, oh, would you like a snack? Right? Like, I don't the biggest recommendation I have for you is not to get frustrated, especially in the beginning. You're learning how to communicate with your loved one all over again. It does not mean you can't have pleasant and sweet conversations in the future. It does not mean that at all. But it does mean you're learning a new language. You're learning a new way of interacting with your husband. And so long as you're thinking it should be like it was in the past, it's going to be really hard for you to come up with this new way of interacting, right? So I hope that helps you in being able to find new ways to communicate with your loved one. Talk to his primary care provider about a speech pathology evaluation to help with communication strategies to figure out where is the breakdown in his speech and his comprehension and his understanding and his expression, like where is the breakdown? And then from understanding where exactly is the breakdown, you can get some specific guidance into how to improve your conversation so you can have some pleasant and sweet conversations again. Does that make sense? I don't know if you were here. I don't think you're here. Sue, right. Okay. And then also, and when it comes to interacting with somebody with dementia and having conversations, we always want to be paying attention to their nonverbals, right? And then also start like paying attention to like what patterns do they have? Like what do they seem to like during this time of day? What seem to calm them? What do they seem to gravitate toward? Like start to take note, like, oh, yesterday he said he wanted water and got frustrated, right? But 2 days ago he said he wanted water, but when I gave him some crackers, he actually seemed like he liked that. Like just really, I wish that I can just say do this, right? And that one thing would work for all of you, but it's not like that. But the number one thing, please, just like Sue, um, avoid the frustration as you go through learning this new communication style with your husband. Okay. This is from Mary Lee. Would you please discuss how to deal with the unexpected rage outbursts? They are screaming, throwing, swearing rage outbursts. They happen when things don't go my loved one's way. They scare me and I don't know what to do. They can happen very quickly when he is frustrated, which catches me off guard. I do know how to keep our environment very calm and I'm pretty good at de-escalating. Great. Okay. So I'm glad you're good at de-escalating. That's really great. Number one, Careblazers, always keep your safety in mind, right? So if you have to remove yourself from the situation, then remove yourself from the situation. You always like being an amazing care blazer, caring for a loved one with dementia does not mean you have to subject yourself to violence. It doesn't mean that, right? You have to prioritize your own safety. So just I want to get that out of the way. If you're dealing with anybody with safety and violence as a concern, then you can literally just um, remove yourself. Lock yourself in the bathroom if you need to, leave the house if you need to, call the police if you need to. Those are all options for you. Obviously, those are like extreme options. We don't go there right away, especially if we're not feeling threatened, right? But I just want you to know, though, those are all possibilities. Um, okay. Um, So, what I really encourage you to do, Mary Lee, number one, continue doing everything you're doing for de escalation. That is great. That's a huge skill to have to be able to de escalate him. What I'd really start paying attention for you is actually seeing what the triggers are, trying to catch it right before the behavior, right? Like you say it's quickly when he's frustrated. What are his signs that he's becoming frustrated? What are early signs of frustration? What are the things he's usually doing when he's frustrated? How can we either remove those triggers or intervene before it gets to that point? Right? So, like, for example, just making something up, if he seems to get frustrated whenever he's trying to change the remote control, right? How can you intervene beforehand? Can we keep that remote control um, out of his reach so that when he needs it, you're there to help him change it? Can we get the remote control, maybe one of those really big universal remote controls where there's only like several buttons that work? Can we get it where we like tape off certain buttons he never needs to touch and it's only the simple buttons? Can we get it where you notice as soon as he picks up the remote control, you kind of are in the area really close by? Like catching it before it happens is great if it's able to happen. So just like really start to notice, when is he getting frustrated? Is it certain times of day? Is it when people are around? I have actually, let me see if I can drop it in the link here. Let me pull it up. It's I have something called well, there's something called like the ABCs of behavior. The A is the antecedent, basically means what comes right before the behavior. This is where we want to pay attention to. Sometimes things that you don't think would really bother somebody, your loved one with dementia, are the things that are setting them off. And when you start to take note of it and start to realize the patterns, it'll give you more ideas to intervene. I actually have an entire two worksheets where you can start to document and track who is around, what time of day, factor in all of these different ideas. I'm going to drop the links here for you guys to download, and then I'll actually make a new. I have, if you notice in the care course, there's a whole section that says behavior course coming soon. You guys are going to get access to all of that, and you'll have even updated worksheets. But I want to drop this in for you guys right now. This one is tracking difficult dementia behaviors. So for any of you trying to handle a difficult dementia behavior, this would be really good for you too, Sue, when it comes to trying to figure out like the way to communicate with your loved one. This could also be beneficial for that too. There's two different worksheets, part one and part two. They went with some videos I did in the past, but these are great for you to just start taking notes and start thinking of like what to look for and how to really put on that detective hat. Here we go. Here's the next one. Okay, those two links there will work. I'll make sure I upload them to the Care Course member website as well. Um, and you're doing great, Mary. The other thing I want to say is like you say, I do know how to keep our environment very calm. I'm pretty good at de-escalating. Great. Continue doing all of those things. Sometimes loved ones are just going to get upset, right? So you just, and so also start to pay attention to, this is another thing. So I talked about paying attention to the antecedent, paying attention to the triggers, what comes before. What I also want you to do is pay attention after. Notice what things, seem to calm him down quicker, what things seem to make it last longer. Sometimes it might literally be you leaving the area, right? That might be what calms him down. Sometimes you leaving the area might make him more upset and you need to be there to like reassure him and let him know everything's going to be okay. So pay attention to that too. But what I also want to say is that sometimes loved ones are going to get upset and going to get frustrated, going to have some rage and like it's just going to happen. So you getting comfortable with knowing I've got this. I know how to respond to this. I've been here before. I've done this before. I know exactly what to do. Getting to that place is going to be really good. Now, if Mary Lee, this is entirely new behavior and he's all of a sudden having these rage episodes and he didn't before, talk to his primary care provider. We want to rule out some sort of delirium or urinary tract infection or some sort of underlying cause of any new aggressive behavior, right? Whenever there's like a really sudden onset of new behavior that's totally out of character for your loved one, we always want to check and rule out some sort of an infection that's happening. But I get the sense this is something that's been going on for you. The other thing you say, they scare me. I don't know what to do. I want to challenge you on this, Mary Lee. You are handling it. I want you to start practicing. I know exactly what to do. If I knew exactly what to do, what would I do? I want you to try on those thoughts and I want you to brainstorm and write down some ideas. I would make myself safe. I would get out of the way. I would check back in 5 minutes and see how things are doing. I would make sure that there are no, no heavy items nearby, right? Like that's another thing. Like if you know throwing is something, like check your house. Like maybe the paper, like I'm just making something up. Like if he spends most of his time in the living room, maybe having a really heavy object right next to his seat is not something you want to have. Right? Maybe having something that's really valuable to you that's breakable is not something you want to have where he often is. Right? So start you I want to challenge you. You do know what to do. Whenever we think we don't know what to do, our brain is going to be like, great, I'm off the hook. I don't have to think about what to do. So you are currently getting through it somehow. So you know how to do it somewhat, you know how to do something, and you're constantly improving and getting more comfortable at what to do. So this is where I would really focus on your thoughts of, I don't know what to do. If you don't know what to do, of course you're feeling scared, right? You're scared and confused. What if you did know what to do? What if you thought I'm learning what to do? I'm practicing new things about what to do. I am figuring out what to do. Then how do you feel? You might feel like still a little bit anxious and apprehensive, but you might be feeling like a little bit confident as well, right? So again, Careblazer, we never want to lose the importance of our thoughts and how they impact our loved ones and what they do. All right. And then I'm going to get to the Q&A and the questions here. I'm on my last question that was submitted, I believe. So then I'll get to what's in the chat. This one, let's see. My husband doesn't want me to leave the house or out of his sight. How should I get my respite? Also, his verbal abuse is never ending. It's torturing me. Please help. Okay. So again, your loved one might not want you to leave the house, but you can leave the house. I know that's a really challenging thing to hear, Careblazer. Your loved one may never want you to leave the house, may never want you to leave their site, may never want to have somebody else come in the house and care, but you still can do these things. Now, you say his verbal abuse is never ending. He's already not happy. He's already doing verbal abuse. He's already doing all these things that you're subjecting yourself to. Like, if he's going to do these things, like, we'll talk about maybe how we can work on that as well. But like, if he's going to do these things, like, might as well do some things that help you. So what would happen if you left the house? What would happen if you like I don't know, is he safe to be home alone? Like I'm guessing, let's say he's safe to be home alone, right? If he's safe to be home alone and he doesn't like you to leave the house, like you can still leave the house, right? If he's not safe to be home alone and he doesn't want you to leave the house, like you might have to have somebody come over and check on him. You might have to bring him somewhere, right? It's not going to be pleasant. It's not going to, especially in the beginning, it's not going to be a pleasant experience, right? Because you don't want to make your loved one upset. But Careblazer, your loved one is already upset. Your loved one's upset right now the way things are going. So I really want to encourage you. How can you get your respite? How can you still, and respite, I also want to talk about this. Like respite might mean that you are able to get out of the house for a couple of hours. Respite might mean that you're able to get out, go away for a couple of weeks while your loved one goes to a care facility and have other people caring for them. Respite might also mean that you get an hour in the morning before you come out of your bedroom and face the day. It might mean that you get to have lunch with a friend, or you get to have somebody come over and be with your husband while you just take a nap in the bedroom, right? So I want you to challenge yourself. Like, you might not have the ideal respite you want right now, or the ideal respite you want might be a work in progress and not immediately available to you tomorrow. What could you start doing now? Careblazer, I don't know how many times I can say it and how hard it is. Like, your loved one's not going to appreciate everything you do. Your loved one's not going to agree with everything you do. Your loved one's not going to want you to do everything that you do. And you can still do those things, right? But if you have the idea that your loved one being upset is something that shouldn't happen, and so you're going to stop doing those things, you're never going to give yourself the fighting chance. You're never going to give yourself the ability to make these things happen, right? So I'd really encourage you. I don't know, have you ever tried to leave the house? What happened? Problem solve that, right? So many of us are going to say, yeah, he was angry for days and he yelled at me and it was awful. And, he tried to follow, like, you're going to go and you're going to say the things that went wrong. And so then you think, I can never do it again. But that's not true. We can try it again, and you can look to the past to think, what can I do differently? How might I approach this differently? Maybe for the first time, instead of leaving for an entire hour, I'm just going to sit in the backyard for 10 minutes and see how that works, right? Like, give yourself a fighting chance. Do not take your loved one's frustration as a sign that you shouldn't do it. His verbal abuse is never ending and it's torturing me. I want to challenge you on this. And I know this is really hard to hear, but I'm challenging you on this because it's hard for you to feel tortured and it's hard for you to be in the situation you're in right now. I want you to feel better. So, like we've learned in the care course, nothing anybody says or does makes you feel any sort of way, right? So you have a thought, like, he says something that's verbally abusive. I don't know what it is. He might say, you're an awful person, or I hate you. I'm just making this up, right? He might say that. You have the thought, this is torturing me. And then you have a feeling of, I don't know what that feeling is, like uh, overwhelmed, frustrated, upset, right? So I'm going to ask you, as your big challenge and homework, to change your thought. A thought that you believe, that you can believe right now, right? Instead of, he is torturing me, like, is it, this is an awful disease. His disease is taking over his brain in really awful ways. This is really hard. Like, it doesn't have to lead you to a pleasant emotion. I want you to know that, but it has to, like, go up the ladder. When we think about, like, the ladder of emotions, right? Let's say right now you're feeling like totally hopeless, right? About your situation. Um, so you're totally hopeless about the situation and you want to feel confident or you want to feel calm, right? You're not likely going to jump from hopeless to confident like that. You have to work yourself up there. And that requires the work in your brain of figuring out, right now you have the thought, he is torturing me. That probably doesn't feel very good. Probably has you feeling really hopeless or whatever, whatever emotion it is, you didn't tell me. So, what's the next best thing you can feel? You're hopeless right now. Maybe the next best thing is a little bit frustrated. Maybe that's the next step up from hopeless. Let's be realistic here, Blazer. So, what could you think that would be a little bit more frustrating, right? Like, um, it might be something of, um, this is the only way he knows how to respond, right? And you might be frustrated. This is the only way he knows how to respond, right? So now you're frustrated. You spend some time there. Now you practice what's the next thought I could have, right? What the next thought you have might be, I wonder if there's anything that can be done to minimize it or to reduce it, right? That might lead to curiosity. You might be curious. I wonder what could be done, right? You might be calling the doctor. You might be saying, hey, his verbal abuse is never ending. It's going on. Is there anything that can be done? And the doctor might be able to have some ideas for you, medication for you, or something like that, right? But you don't even allow your brain to kind of come up with some of those things when you're thinking it's never ending and it's torturing me, right? If it's never ending, you probably do feel hopeless, right? If he's torturing you, you're probably feeling resentful or frustration, right? So, like, I really want you to challenge, what can you start thinking that's going to lead to a better feeling for you? Because right now you're not feeling really good at all. So, again, you have permission to do things your loved one doesn't want you to do. Careblazers, that's for all of that's for all of you. You have permission to do things that your loved one does not want you to do. And you're going to have to be creative in coming up with, like, how do I even do that? Right? How do I even start to make that happen? I'm just writing a note here. I don't want to forget that. So what are your thoughts about that? I don't actually know if you're here. I'm going to take a look in the comments here now. And then I want to just say, I know it's hard. I know it's not easy, right? But I also want to say what you're doing right now is hard. It's not easy. right? So, like, let's at least open ourselves up to possibility, to experimentation, to trying new things, to believing new things, to thinking new things. All of that's going to be hard too, but at least there's the upside of you starting to feel better. Okay, Sue says, great, that does make sense. Wonderful. Liz, you can ask me your question right here in the chat if you like. And then what I would recommend is I would email me and say, I'm guessing you're getting emails from me because you somehow found this link. This link was only sent to people who got the email. So all you had to do was reply to that email. But you can also leave your question here right now. All right, now I'm going to get to your questions in the comments. Careblazer, I hope this helps. And I also just want to say, like, hang in there. I know that it's hard. I know that it's not easy. And I know that um, you wish that things could just happen like this, but it often doesn't. But if you give up, you have no chance of things improving. If you just stay hopeless and think that there's nothing that can be done, nothing will be done, right? Again, it's all about the power of our thoughts. If you think your loved one's going to be this way forever, your loved one probably is because you're not going to be very motivated to make any changes. So, Careblazers, you do have power. It's just that you have to keep showing up and you have to keep trying. And the only downside is you might actually learn to feel a little bit better. You might actually learn how to take control over some situation. You might actually learn you have more power in your situation, right? That's like the upside of going through all this hard work. The upside of the hard being in the hard situation you are now without trying any of those things, like there's not much of an upside. It's just you stay where you are. Um, okay, good. So I'm going to go through the comments here right now, Careblazers. I think we have time. We do. We have about just under 15 minutes. Um, Sonia, I'm so glad you're going out to a fancy dinner. What I would recommend to you, Sonia, is like just be proud of yourself for making this decision, right? And for being open to it. And just like think right now of how much you're already anticipating and the pleasure you're getting from that dinner. Don't have any expectations for how it's going to go, right? Like just be okay with whatever rolls, right? Whether, your loved one might spill something, she might not enjoy it, whatever happens, I just want you to be open to it all and just congratulate yourself that you're actually going forward with this. Um, Rachel says resentment is tough to let go. So, like, it's also hard to keep, you know? Like, resentment is hard to stop. It's also hard to keep. So, I would work on the hard that allows it to stop. Resentment really comes in from thinking of the past and how things should have been differently and how people should have done things differently. So, my recommendation here would be catch yourself when your brain does it. Your brain is going to do it. That's not the problem. The problem is indulging in it, staying in it, fantasizing with it, thinking of it over and over again. Like I want you to be like, "No, I'm not we're not doing that today." Right? We're focusing right here right now in the present moment. Hello from Canada. Liz says he does the opposite of what I suggest. So if that's true, like kind of having a little bit of fun with it, if he does the opposite of what you suggest the thing you don't want him to do and see if he does the opposite of it, and then you get what you want, right? Like see if you can learn to uh learn his language. Like you know how he responds. See if you can adjust your approach to actually get what you're wanting. Yeah. It is natural to have resentment from time to time. Yes. Yeah, and Sonia, you're so awesome. You say it's our thoughts, we can control them. Yes. We can't control like all 50,000 thoughts we have in a day, right? Like our brain is just feeding us all kinds of thoughts, right? But we can control which ones we want to like experiment with. We can control which ones we want to focus on. We can control which ones we want to indulge in, right? Like I have thoughts all the time, Careblazers, of like, I shouldn't be doing this. This is crazy. What am I doing online? Right? I have those all I have the thoughts like when I get like a nasty email, I should just stop. What am I doing? I don't need this, right? I get those all the time. I don't make them mean anything, right? You don't have to make your thoughts mean anything. I'm just like, oh, Ah, there goes my thought. I don't, that's okay. What do I want to choose? What do I want to choose to think? Careblazers, what do you want to think on purpose? Right? Practice that. Your brain will offer you all kinds of things like, I'm not doing a good job. This is so hard. I should know better. This is overwhelming. This is hopeless. This is constant torture. Your brain is going to offer all of those thoughts. Do you want to focus on that thought? Or what do you want to think on purpose? Ask yourself that right now. What do you want to think on purpose about how you're doing? What do you want to think on purpose about how you're responding to these situations? Then think that immediately. Like it's a practice, right? I think one of the things is like sometimes people think like, oh, well, I learned all this. I should be good now. But it's not. It's like eating or exercise. You have to keep doing it to get the benefits. We have to keep eating um, whenever we get hungry, right? The food doesn't last forever. We have to keep exercising to keep the health benefits. We can't just like exercise once and then be done. We have to keep practicing self care in order to get the benefit of self care. We have to keep practicing thought management in order to keep the benefit of thought management. Our brain is always going to offer us stuff that does not serve us. That is okay. We don't have to make it a problem. It only becomes a problem when we let it become a problem. We have to decide what am I actually trying to focus on? What am I actually trying to spend my time on? What am I actually trying to, what kind of care blazer am I trying to become, right? You're not trying to become the care blazer that's constantly pleasing your loved one and making your loved one feel good all the time. That's not realistic. And if you were only there to make your loved one feel good all the time, you'd probably actually end up harming your loved one because your loved one would be able to like manage all the finances and do all the cooking and do all the driving and still operate firearms and do all the things that are dangerous, right? We don't want that. So it does require like some conscious on purpose thinking of like actually this is the type of person I'm becoming the type of person that also considers my needs. I'm becoming the type of person who is okay with doing some things my loved one doesn't want to do because I know that it's in their best interest or it's in my best interest or it's in both of our best interests, right? Thoughts are going to, you have so many thoughts, a lot of them are not going to be helpful, but that's okay. Focus on the ones that are helpful. Focus on those thoughts. It's like literally it's practice, right? And as you practice, you get better at it. But what I do want to say is like, there's no good in not practicing it. It like to be on autopilot, to be on default, to not actually put conscious effort into what's going through your brain is really harmful to you. It won't improve your life. It won't improve your caregiving situation. Um, let's see. So Liz says he wants to go everywhere I go. He's so slow and can't walk for me. That's okay. So maybe there are some times when he just doesn't go with you and you say, I'm so sorry. I know you want to go and you can't. Like you can just say that. Like Careblazers, I give you permission to just say that. You can all like I don't know how his cognitive impairment is, but is he somebody who can do one of the scooters sometimes? Like, is that a possibility? And then if not, like maybe there are some things you just kind of make up for him to go with you with. Like maybe you know like he's really slow, so maybe it's not an errand or event you actually need to do, but you do it just so he can go with you. Like maybe through the drive-through to get like ice cream cone, or maybe to like the store to pick up something you don't even need, like where it's only just that. So you know it's going to take a long time. You know he wants to go, and you're just doing it for him. So like give yourself permission for both of those things to happen. Does anyone have any suggestions for how to stop your loved one from calling the care facility every day, multiple times a day, every day? So your loved one from calling the care facility every day, multiple times. So what you can do, I'm guessing he has access to the phone, right? So if he's having access to the phone and he's calling this number, um, what you could try doing is blocking that number from being called. Like, do you have Rachel? You're here. Do you have? Is it a landline? Is it a cell phone? Let me know. Maybe we can come up with some specific advice there. Because I'm thinking you can remove that number. Like I'm guessing he doesn't have the number memorized. Can you remove that number from the saved contacts? Can you save the care facility? This is an idea. Oh my gosh. Rachel, if it's a cell phone, for sure. If it's saved, put the care facility's name there. Like, let's say care facility is like Care Facility X in the phone, and then put a wrong number in there, like a number that's going to go to a wrong number, like, we're sorry, right? Or if you wanted to take it to the next level, Rachel, do you know you can create a free Google number? Create a free Google number with a voicemail and say, "Hi, you've reached care facility X. Can't come to the phone right now. Please leave a message." Did you know you can do that? And then whenever he calls the care facility, it's that message. That would be a really great idea that doesn't frustrate him because it's not closed. Like if you think the closed error message would work, you can do that. If you think he's really going to want to do something, you can just create a fake voicemail for it. And then you have the care facility's number somewhere else. You can even save it under a different name he wouldn't notice, right? That would be an idea. Um, and if it's like a landline where it's written on a piece of paper, change the number to the fake Google number. Marie took mom to the zoo on Tuesday and ate in the snack bar, drive through zoo. Mom loved animals. Sorry, I'm at Atlanta Airport trying to listen, fading in and out. Oh, I'm so happy you had that experience, Marie. Safe travels to you. Hello, hello. We have no conversation. He can't hold a thought long enough. Okay, so that's okay. Like if he can't hold a thought long enough, like you can decide how you want to conversate. Like some people think this is really important. Some people think the conversation has to be like the other person is fully understanding everything. Sometimes the conversation is just enjoying the presence of them. Sometimes the conversation is you sharing a story and letting them listen to you. Sometimes the conversation is them saying things that make no sense and you just enjoying their presence. You just enjoying their presence and enjoying the fact that they're trying to communicate with you, right? Like we have to really reconsider what we're going to think is successful. So like sometimes for especially for like when somebody's like in the severe stages of dementia and nonverbal, it's totally okay to read a book to them. It's totally okay to share how your day was, to tell them a story, to reminisce on something about the past, to talk about the upcoming holiday season and what you're looking forward to, and do not have expectations of what they're supposed to say to you in return. Pay attention to their nonverbals. You can see if they're kind of enjoying it or not. But like it's like conversation can still happen even if it's not exactly a two-way street or how it's been in the past. Yeah, so Cheryl, it might be you just like really communicating with him. Like, don't lose that love and connection if you can, um, especially if they're not showing signs of frustration that you're conversating with them. Oh my gosh, Barbara, you're a speech pathologist. Looking at the loved one using short, concise words. Pictures are good too. Yeah, awesome. Um, the words he can always find is "I love you." Okay, Cheryl, keep that. Like your loved one is not able to have a conversation with you the way that you have in the past, but he knows how to say I love you. Like no, like your loved one's not communicating with you because they don't want to. They just don't know how. But he's still communicating those words to you. You can still communicate to him whatever words you want. Oh, Sonia, awesome. I've had some success with saying, here's the drink or food you asked for with some success. He has Parkinson's dementia, Blake flat face, not talking, extremely slow. That's okay. So Barbara, you really want to just pay attention to how does he respond when you try things? You're just going to have to like do a bit of trial and error. You can really try the pictures with him too, because for Parkinson's, he's probably not going to be able to write very well, depending on the stage that it's in, or it's going to be really hard to read. Can people still get memory lane cards? Oh, that's a really good so memory lane cards, they sold out really quickly. I did not print new ones up. I do have digital version for sale for $9.99, like $9. Um, and I'll try to drop a link here. That's really great if you're just trying to have a conversation with them, or if the person can't talk back and you just want to have like something to bring up, even if you have a family around for the holidays and you're like just trying to think of like what to talk about and topics, or if you're giving your loved one a bath and you're wondering what you can talk about. Like all of these things are really great prompts and questions. If you get it, you can get the digital version where you can print them off yourself, or you can just have them on the computer. um, I'm actually trying to figure out how people can get it. I know like it's digital, so anybody can get it. I'm just trying to figure out how to make that happen and drop it if you're wanting them. I'm just going to drop, let's see if I can drop that in the chat here, if it works. Okay, I think this might work. Sonia, here's a link to Digital Memory Lane. You should also get an email right away with like how to use the cards and what you can do. I might eventually get them printed up again because they sold out like in 2 days. Um, but that's not on my radar right now. Hi, Tammy. That's great. Um, my family member wants me to come over all the time to help her do things, find things she's lost. It's a cell phone. She's at the care facility and she calls me constantly. Okay, so Rachel, what I want to offer to you is that you don't have to answer all the calls. You don't have to. I want to give you permission not to, right? She's at a care facility. You know she's cared for. You know if it's an emergency, that care facility is going to call you. So I want to give you permission to not put the pressure on yourself. Monitor your thoughts when you don't answer that call. If you do answer that call, just know that like she's going to ask for things that don't really make sense or that you can't like take care of right away, but you can decide how you want to respond and say, oh my, okay, you know what, I'm going to take care of that right away. Oh, I'll get that taken care of for you. Oh, okay, thanks for letting me know, I'll work on that. Like you can come up with those responses, and then you can say, I got to go right now, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, or whatever the case may be. You do not have to answer them or engage with them rationally directly to what they're saying. You could just calm their emotion, like focus on the emotion rather than the words. So your family member might be, the words might be, I've lost something, I need help finding something, I can't find my cell phone. The emotion is some anxiety and restlessness. So respond to the emotion and the restlessness of, it's going to be okay. I'm going to get that for you. I'll make sure we find that for you. I'll talk to the care facility and make sure that happens. Like address the emotion underneath it versus you don't have a cell phone, or the cell phone's in the safe, or you didn't lose it, you're talking on it right now. Like avoid that like rational dead on response. Try to address the emotion in between and give yourself permission, Rachel, to not answer that phone all the time. Oh, Dina, you're asking your question here. You were the very first question I answered, I believe, in this live Q&A. So I'm guessing you joined this live Q&A as it was already in progress. We're about to end here in a couple of, well, we're going to end here really soon. So just click the link again, go to the very beginning. I answered your question. Oh, thank you, Marcia. I appreciate that. Yes, one-sided conversations are really great. The only reason they're not great is because we're telling ourselves in our mind that they're not great and they're not like they used to be. But people benefit from that. Like to be able to share a story with somebody who's not able to communicate back. Like the worst thing is like not even trying to communicate with your loved one, right? So Careblazers, that's what I have for you today. Let's see when the next live Q&A is. Um, and then you'll get an email. Just respond to that email to ask your question ahead of time. Otherwise, we have time in the chat usually. There looks like there's a live Q&A on Wednesday at noon, Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Wednesday, December 15th. Again, you'll get an email, Careblazer. Please be going through the course. Please refresh yourself on the modules that are good. There are so many great things coming. We're going to do a relationship revival starting in the new year, and it's going to be focused on making a really great relationship between you and your loved one with dementia. That's going to be awesome. We're going to start that right away in January. I'm going to like let the new year happen. And then like 2 days after that, you're going to start getting material on it. So I've got lots of things in store for you. Keep going through everything. You're doing amazing work. I wish it was easier, Careblazer. I do. I'm sorry that it's not, but you are becoming such a strong person. You are getting so great at going through challenges by going through this. There's so much good that is coming from it, even though it's really hard right now. Okay. Much love to you all. Have a great Saturday. I'll talk to you later.